Noah's flood. The perfect storm that also made the Nile the longest river in the world. And the desert that turned into a large garden oasis watered by 4 rivers. Supported by satellite data. Genesis. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight. And the earth was filled with violence. I am going to bring a flood of waters on the earth. Everything that is on the earth shall die. In the 2nd month, on the 17th day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. The rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The waters increased, and bore up the ark, and rose it high above the earth. The waters swelled so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters swelled above the mountains, covering them 15 cubit deep. And the waters swelled on the earth for 150 days. God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains. The waters continued to abate. In the 10th month, the tops of the mountains appeared. In the 2nd month of the following year, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. In the 1st century, Flavius Josephus wrote in the Antiquities of the Jews that there was confusion on where the ark came to rest. He suggests it was on Baris mountain in Armenia, upon which it is reported that many who fled at the time of the deluge were saved, and that one who was carried in an ark came on shore upon the top of it, and that the remains of the timber were a great while preserved. This might be the man about whom Moses, the legislator of the Jews, wrote. The Assyrians called the vast lands to their north, including Armenia, the kingdom of Ura too, the commonly used ancient Phoenician script, and derivatives such as Hebrew, used only consonants. So this RRT in another tongue was Ararat. This was about another flood because the mountain never was fully submerged, and there were many other survivors. Several sources also write about 7 days of rain, not 40. The mixing with other stories, such as those of Gilgamesh or Utnapishtim, may have happened when the king of Judah, his court and many more Jews were exiled to Babylon in the 6th century BC. According to Josephus, one of the 4 rivers coming from the Garden of Eden is the Gihon, which the Greeks call Nile. This Gihon flows around the land of Cush, and the other, the Pison, flows around the country of Havilah where there is gold, bdellium, and the onyx stone. In the 10th century Arabic translation of the Bible by Rabbi Gaon, the name of the country is Zillah. In Aramaic, with the H missing and a damaged V. This could be read as Zillah, or Zillah in Arabic. There is confusion about the remaining names. The Hiddekel or Tigris, and the Perith, or Euphrates. Josephus provides us with another clue. This calamity happened in the 2nd month, called by the Macedonians Dias, but by the Hebrews Maheshvan. So the heavy rains started in October. The main wet season in tropical East Africa lasts from April to June. but sometimes there is also a wet season from October to December. There is no such wet season in a very wide area around Mesopotamia. So let us now focus on the Nile and the Egyptian creation story. When the earth was said to have started over, the waters of chaos had destroyed and drowned the earth. Then the god Atum splits the waters of chaos, which was the beginning of the Egyptian civilization. This is not so much about a flood, but a devastating amount of water suddenly flowing over the land, coming from somewhere. A deluge. Atum is often depicted sitting on a boat. In Ethiopia it was until recently custom to be able to name your ancestors. Just like Noah in Genesis. Noah the son of Lamech, the son of Methuselah, the son of Henoch, the son of Jared, the son of Mahalalel, the son of Kenan, the son of Enos, the son of Seth, the son of Adam. Could a different language have caused a misunderstanding where the family line of Adam became Atum? What if Noah, after surviving the flood, left the destructed land on a boat to float down the river Nile with his family? So let's now look at the false color RGB image using Landsat's band 7, 6 and 5. This shape and the coloring could be the result of a huge deluge that once swept over the land. In the north of this coloration there is the Qattara Depression. In the digital elevation model we see that the northern edge of the depression is rather steep, whereas in the south it has a gentle slope. What if the speed of the water coming from the south was just enough to go over the top of this ridge, and a little further north it eroded the original Qattara plain? As long as the water is coming at the same speed, it would continue to erode this newly formed northern edge, creating a depression that gradually deepens, with a steep northern edge and most of the water flowing to the west, creating an increasingly wide channel. But more to the east it looks like this southern ridge is getting a little too high. The water stopped and flowed to the east, eroding the desert and creating the El Fayoum Depression. This difference, or watershed, is where the southern hill is getting approximately 290 meters high. In Arabic, the rabbi's full name, Sa'adia ben Yosef Gaon, was translated to Sa'id bin Yusuf al-Fayoumi, which is almost the same as El Fayoum. The ancient Egyptians called it Pa-Yum, meaning a large body of water, and with the Nile or Gion in full flood it reached this lake, making it one. Perhaps Gion, Fayoum and Gaon all sounded the same in 10th century Arabic and to Josephus. The next step is to go up the river, looking for a large plain that would explain why for an extended period of time the water reached this southern Qattara ridge at the same speed. This plain is just under 290 meters. Here the floodwater coming from further south could have flowed over this plateau, and next erode the western face of the mountain, blocking the water just north of here. These smooth edges, probably caused by flowing water, are very different from how the plateau has eroded elsewhere, as we can see a little more to the east for example. Finally the mountain to the north collapsed, stopping the flow over the plateau and creating the riverbed of the Nile. The Nile, which originally probably started north of this plain, now runs all the way to Ethiopia and Lake Victoria. we can virtually raise the water upstream of this location to 290 meters. A mega lake appears. But with the present-day topography there is a huge opening in the west of Egypt. At about 270 meters. There are also two gaps, one of which only reaches 247 meters. But given the extensive disturbances north of this ridge, the floodwaters must have exceeded the higher threshold. In the 1980s, fish fossils were found in this possible mega lake, in an area far west of the Nile. And in 2010 further evidence was presented the Tushka Lake had varied enormously in size over the years depending on the rainfall, the evaporation and the water seeping in the aquifer underneath. This was supposed to have happened before the last ice age. This also means that it had no outlet via the Nile towards the Mediterranean. The maximum water level in this Tushka Lake was supposed to have been as high as the present-day opening at 247 meters. However, the water and wind in this harsh Sahara desert could have eroded the small gaps and taken off several meters of the 270 meters elsewhere over the many thousands of years since. And these dunes very slowly migrate to the west, also taking sand from the ridge. How far east could they have been so many thousands of years back? This massive amount of water could also have tilted this whole area and beyond a bit, which would have further reduced the approximately 15 meters that is missing below 290 meters. According to Genesis, however, the water level only began to fall after the wind started blowing. If this was a strong wind coming from the northwest, it could, over a distance of 640 kilometers, lower the level at this western opening and at the same time raise it just enough in the east to reach 290 meters. There is one large mountain in the middle of the Tushka Valley. In the northeast it has a gentle slope towards a lake. The very top of this U-shaped mountain is a flat plain in the southeast measuring roughly 3 by 13 kilometers, varying from 250 to around 280 meters, and two small peaks in the east reaching 296 meters. Because the distance to the northwest ridge is now only 530 kilometers, the maximum flood level here is 2.6 meters less. Not 290 but 287.4 meters. This is 7 or 8 meters above the plain on top of the mountain. Remember, according to Genesis, the water reached 15 cubits above the summit. And this is close to 8 meters. But now the possible scenario why the ark could have ended up right there, on this part of the mountain. North of this U-shaped mountain is a lake. Living around a lake would have made sense because of the plants, the animals and the fish. When the lake expands, because of rain or water from the river, people could easily move up the mountain. They must also have known how to build a boat or a raft. According to Genesis, the ark was 300 cubits long, 50 wide and 30 high. This is huge. Was the size of the ark changed? Genesis is not clear on how many animals were on board. What would have been the minimum size to carry Noah, his family, supplies, and 7 pairs of his animals. Not 350 and 30, but 30 cubits long, 5 wide and 3 high, could have been enough. With the upcoming flood, and wind from the northwest, it might have been possible to have this boat on a rope as it started to float, and they then slowly made their way up the gentle slope. This mountain has another remarkable feature. On the top is a characteristic hill. In the violent times Genesis reports, it could have been used as a stronghold, again making this a sensible place to live. So, as the ark floated higher and higher, they were getting closer to this hill. According to the Quran, Noah called his son, who was still on the mountain, to come on board, but he refused. "I will take refuge on the mountain to protect me from the water," he replied. Then a wave came between them and he was swept away. His mother was also there on the mountain. In the ark, Noah was with his wife Zara and 7 others. Their sons Ham, Shem and Japheth, their wives, and also Canaan who was the son of Ham. Noah, like his father, Lamech, had 2 wives. With Zara, their children and those they were married to. He originally came from a place full of violence. Even his own father had killed a man and a boy. He became afraid of being killed because he had tried to stop the violence and the disrespect for God. Further south, near the Nile, at Jebel Sahaba there was an exceptional burial site dated between 10,000 and 13,000 years BC. Of the 61 graves that were investigated, many skeletons had visible wounds from weapons. Some had healed, but the bodies could have had more wounds. Wounds that had left no marks on the bones. Is it possible this was the place of violence Noah originally came from? His second wife may have been a local woman who knew this hilltop had always been high enough. The sides are steep, so it could also have been impossible to bring the ark to the top. Moving the ark to the leeward side of the hill for shelter would make sense, anchoring it to a rock or a tree. But as the water continues to rise, at some point the ark floats away. Perhaps on top of the hill. His second wife, after having lost her son, now also saw the ark disappear. The wind blows them to the southeast, to the mountain top that is still visible, but it too slowly submerges. Looking back, the hilltop with the others disappears beneath the waves. As they came closer, the southern mountain also disappeared. But suddenly the ark stops. They accidentally anchored on top, with the rock, or tree to which they had tied the ark. But the 2 small peaks of 296 meters will have remained above the water. Since the Earth is round, these peaks would have completely disappeared from view at a distance of over 10 kilometers. With the reported wind, waves could have reduced this to just a few kilometers. The nearest mountains, from 322 to 340 meters, are 40 and more kilometers away to the south, southeast and northeast. Such peaks would not have been visible at a distance of more than 21 to 26 kilometers. So, for the people on the ark, the peaks and all the mountains everywhere had disappeared beneath the water. There could have been survivors on the other mountains as well and on faraway desert shores. But if they had not brought enough provisions and animals, they could not have survived. Even after the floodwaters subsided, having livestock that can feed on grasses could be key to survival in the devastated lands. For Noah it would have made sense to float down the Nile to find a better place to live. The amount of water to fill the Tushka mega lake is so enormous that it is hard to imagine that it could have been done by rainwater alone. It has been mentioned before. It was a year with 2 rainy seasons. And probably not all the extra water from that spring season had already disappeared. But there was something potentially much bigger. During the last ice age, it was so dry that the Sahara expanded up to 400 kilometers further south. Even Lake Victoria dried up. This extremely dry period peaked 16,000 BC and ended around 12,000 BC. It seems that this very wide sand ridge was partly created by Aeolian sands. It now blocked the former outlet to Mega Lake Chad for the water coming from Lake Victoria. With Landsats near infrared band 7 we can still see the remnants of this part of the river. Lake Victoria refilled around 12,700 BC. But with the outlet to the mega lake now blocked, over the years a huge lake formed that got deeper and deeper. With the heavy rainfall reported in Genesis, the water would have spilled over the top of the northern rim. When this water further eroded the new river bed, this huge reservoir emptied into the river that flows north to Lake Tushka. Finally this new riverbed, of the Nile, is created. There is more the near-infrared band reveals. During the Ice Age, this part of the Sudan also had desert conditions, where nothing at all was growing. Or as the Bible says, when no plant of the field was yet in the earth and no herb of the field had yet sprung up. For God had not caused it to rain upon the earth. Next, with water again coming from Lake Victoria, plants began to grow. First in the east. This former riverbed with sediments from the rainforest must have been very fertile, provided there was enough water. Some time later there were 3 more rivers to water the old river bed, recognizable by the fan shape. However, these might have been only seasonal. The runoff of all 4 rivers depended on the seasonal rains, as if all the river water came from one source and from there it divides and becomes 4 branches. This water made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. What if we could first date the events that made the Nile the longest river in the world? And then step by step prove or disprove this journey south, back in time. But the Garden Oasis does not go back in time any further than the end of the last ice age. Is it not Eden? The Sicilian language, which has a very old origin, may offer a clue. Cristiano means both Christian and human being. But replacing prima Christiana with first human could lead to a misunderstanding. Searching for the lost worlds of the Sudan and the Libyan desert. A continuing story, which may have started with the first people to colonize a new oasis, and their monotheistic religion that still survives in the Jewish Muslim and Christian sister religions.